The communications room aboard Earth's orbital research station hummed with activity. Commander Aria Jensen stood at the center of the room, her eyes fixed on the flickering holographic display in front of her. She had seen countless messages intercepted from deep space, but this one was different. The transmission wasn't coming from any known civilization, nor was it a distress signal. It was a warning. The message was dated, the timestamps far older than any records Earth had. Yet it was unmistakably clear. Earth holds a secret. Protect it, or the universe will pay the price. The transmission repeated the same message in a loop, coming from a long-dead, forgotten empire. But what did it mean? Earth was a backwater planet, practically ignored by most of the galaxy, and yet here was an ancient warning about it. The rest of the message was encoded, filled with strange symbols and an odd combination of frequencies that had never been seen before. Jensen's fingers hovered over the console. She had seen encrypted messages before, but this one felt urgent. It was almost as if the sender knew that someone, somehow, would eventually receive this message. The question was, why Earth? Why now? "Commander, we've decoded part of the message," said Lieutenant Marcos, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and caution. "It seems to be part of an old civilization's last transmission. They're calling Earth the final safeguard, but they don't explain why." His brow furrowed as he scrolled through more lines of data, and there's something odd at the end. A strange energy signature coming from Earth. It looks like some kind of power surge, but it's unlike anything we've ever recorded before. Jensen leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing. A power surge. Where exactly is it coming from? Marcos's fingers danced over the console, pulling up a series of charts. "It's all over the planet, Commander. The Arctic, the deep jungles of the Amazon, remote desert regions, even cities that were thought to be inactive for centuries. It's like Earth itself is reacting." The hairs on the back of Jensen's neck stood up. She couldn't ignore the feeling creeping through her. This wasn't just a coincidence. There was something Earth was hiding, something it had been hiding for millennia. And now, the galaxy's most ancient civilizations were drawing closer, seemingly aware of the secret buried deep within the planet. "Send everything we've got to Dr. Klein's team in the Arctic," Jensen ordered. "They're the closest. I want them to investigate immediately. And Lieutenant, prepare the defense systems. If these old empires are coming back for something on Earth, we need to be ready." The urgency in her voice made Marcos nod sharply. "Aye, Commander." Meanwhile, far beneath the ice, Dr. Evelyn Klein and her team were working around the clock. Their research station, nestled in the frozen expanse of the Arctic, had been studying the planet's tectonic activity for months, unaware of the dark forces stirring beneath their feet. When they had first detected the unusual energy signatures, they had thought little of it. But as the months passed, the tremors grew stronger, more frequent. Now their instruments were picking up signals that matched the data from the transmission the orbital station had received. Something massive was buried deep beneath the ice, far older than any known civilization. "Dr. Klein, you need to see this," one of her researchers called out from across the room. Evelyn hurried over to his workstation. On the monitor, an ancient set of symbols began to appear in the data stream, seemingly in response to a nearby energy pulse. They were almost identical to the ones seen in the decoded message from space. Evelyn's heart raced. This isn't just some geological anomaly. This is deliberate. Whatever's beneath this ice is trying to communicate. Her team had already uncovered what they thought was a massive structure buried under layers of ice and rock. But now, with these strange symbols coming to life, Evelyn couldn't ignore the possibility that they had uncovered something far more dangerous than just a long-lost civilization. What if this was the key to the ancient warning? What if Earth was guarding something more dangerous than anyone could imagine? She gave the order to dig deeper, but her instinct told her to be careful. She knew that something ancient and powerful was stirring within the planet. Yet she couldn't ignore the pull to uncover the truth, to know what Earth had been protecting for so long. As the excavation continued, the energy surges began to intensify. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with a rhythmic energy, as if it were alive, aware of their presence. The team felt it too, the hairs on the back of their necks standing up as the energy resonated through the earth, deeper and deeper, towards something far older than any human or alien history. Back in orbit, Commander Jensen sat in front of her console, her mind racing. The final warning had been clear: Earth holds a secret. But what did that secret mean? Why had it been hidden for so long? And who were these ancient civilizations that had left such a cryptic warning? The galaxy's empires were long gone, wiped out by time and war. Yet here they were, coming back to Earth, to the planet no one thought was significant. A small, almost imperceptible flash on the tactical display caught her attention. A distant ship, moving through deep space, was making its way toward Earth's solar system. It wasn't just any ship. It was an ancient warship, bearing the same markings as the ships described in the message. Jensen's pulse quickened. Alert all stations. We have company. As the minutes ticked by, the threat became clearer. The message wasn't just a warning. It was a signal. The galaxy's lost civilizations had known about Earth's dark secret. They had known about the power buried beneath its surface, and they had hidden it away, hoping it would never be discovered. But now it was too late. Whatever Earth had been protecting, it was waking up. As Jensen gave the order to prepare for the unknown, she felt a deep sense of unease. The final warning from the lost civilizations wasn't just a threat. It was a countdown. A countdown to something Earth was never meant to face. And somewhere deep below, in the frozen caverns of the Arctic, Evelyn Klein and her team were unknowingly on the verge of unlocking that dark power. The situation was becoming more dire by the minute. Dr. Evelyn Klein and her team worked tirelessly in the Arctic facility, their minds overwhelmed by the discoveries they were making deep beneath the ice. The once quiet laboratory had turned into a hub of frantic activity, with equipment buzzing and alarms ringing. As the excavation crew dug deeper, the presence beneath the ice grew stronger. There was something alive down there, something that had been waiting for centuries. But the deeper they went, the more the energy readings spiked, sending waves of unease through the researchers. The sealed chamber they had uncovered seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and it felt as if the Earth itself was holding its breath. Evelyn could feel it too, a weight pressing on her chest, as if the very atmosphere around them was thickening. Hours earlier, they had stumbled upon the entrance to a colossal underground structure. The walls were etched with ancient symbols, and as the team scanned them with their devices, they could see faint glows running through the lines, almost as if the markings were alive. The symbols matched the ones in the decoded transmission from the orbital station, symbols tied to the ancient warning about Earth's secret. Evelyn's instincts screamed that they should have turned back, that whatever lay ahead could be far worse than they could imagine. But curiosity, the desire to understand, was overpowering. Every researcher felt it, a pull toward the unknown. Dr. Klein, look at this, one of her lead archaeologists, Dr. Marcus Singh, called out from the depths of the chamber. Evelyn hurried over, her boots crunching over the frozen ground. The team had uncovered a large door, made of a strange alloy, impossible to identify. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, smooth, black, and seemingly impervious to the tools they had on hand. But the most chilling part was the deep humming sound emanating from the door itself. It wasn't just a structure. It was alive, pulsing with energy. Her mind raced as she looked at the readings. The energy levels coming from the door were off the charts, and they were only increasing with every passing second. The chamber around them was also responding, vibrating as if it, too, was coming alive. "We need to shut this down," Evelyn said, her voice low, filled with urgency. But it was too late. A violent surge of energy blasted through the chamber, knocking everyone off their feet. The walls cracked, sending snow and ice cascading from above, and the hum from the door grew louder, more intense. Evelyn scrambled to her feet, heart pounding in her chest. The team was dazed. but no one was seriously injured. But as they stood there, trying to regain their bearings, the ground beneath them began to tremble. At first, it was faint, barely noticeable. But then it grew stronger, pulsing, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of something enormous. The entire chamber shook as if it were alive. Evelyn's mind raced. The guardian, the entity, whatever it was waking up. The warnings were real. The dark force buried beneath the surface was not a myth. It was here, stirring, and the clock was ticking. Dr. Singh, shaking off the shock, grabbed Evelyn's arm. "We have to get out of here. Now," he shouted, panic creeping into his voice. But Evelyn couldn't move. Her gaze was locked on the door, which now shimmered with an eerie glow. The symbols on its surface had shifted, changing in real time, as if responding to something deep within the chamber. There was no turning back now. The world was about to be changed forever. In orbit above Earth, Commander Jensen and her crew were monitoring the situation closely. The research station had been receiving continuous transmissions from Klein's team, but as the energy readings spiked and the tremors increased, they lost contact with the facility. The ancient warships that had been drifting silently through space had now made their move. The time had come to confront the truth of what Earth had been hiding all these centuries. "Commander, we're picking up multiple ships entering Earth's atmosphere," Lieutenant Marcos reported, his voice tight with tension. "They're from the old galactic empires. These are no ordinary ships. They're warships, ancient but far from weak." Jensen's stomach dropped as she processed the information. The ancient empires, long thought extinct, were here, on Earth's doorstep. The warning message had been clear. Earth is the final key. Unlock it, and face destruction. She didn't need to hear anything more. The planet was under threat, and whatever had been hidden beneath the ice was now at the center of an intergalactic showdown. The lost civilizations weren't coming for Earth's resources. They were coming to claim what had been locked away for millennia, something far worse than anyone had realized. And as Klein's team worked to open the ancient door, the rest of the galaxy watched, waiting for the unimaginable power buried beneath Earth's surface to be unleashed. Back in the Arctic, Evelyn and her team stood in front of the now open chamber, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The door had finally given way, and a massive underground structure had revealed itself. Inside, dark, swirling energy pulsed, an unnatural force that threatened to consume everything in its path. Evelyn felt her heart racing as she stared into the abyss. This was it. The ancient civilizations had known about this. The energy had been locked away for a reason, and now it was free. The team's instruments began to go haywire, flashing red as the dark power surged. In that moment, Evelyn knew Earth wasn't just a planet of interest. It was the last line of defense against an unimaginable disaster. Whatever was in that chamber wasn't just a weapon. It was something far worse. And as the ancient fleets descended upon Earth, Evelyn realized they weren't just here to conquer. They were here to stop Earth from making the same mistake the galaxy's empires had made centuries ago. The stage was set. The battle for the future of Earth and the universe had begun. As the dark power continued to pulse beneath the ice, Evelyn Klein and her team stood frozen in shock. The chamber before them was filled with an eerie, swirling energy, a force so intense it seemed to distort the very air around them. The lights flickered, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated in sync with the pulsating waves of power emanating from the heart of the ancient structure. The once intricate symbols now glowed fiercely, their meanings shifting before their eyes, as if the chamber itself were alive, reacting to the presence of those who had dared to uncover its secrets. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The force before her was not just a weapon. It was a consciousness, a sentient, malevolent presence that had been buried and sealed away for a reason. The walls of the chamber seemed to close in on her, the weight of the power around her growing heavier. The research team exchanged terrified glances, but Evelyn couldn't tear her eyes away from the swirling energy. There was something ancient, something old beyond comprehension, trapped inside this planet. It was clear now. The warning they had received wasn't just a caution. It was a prophecy. Whoever had sent that message, whoever had sealed this force inside Earth, had known exactly what they were dealing with. The galaxy had failed to contain it, and now Earth was the final line of defense. "We've made a mistake," Dr. Singh muttered, his voice breaking the silence. But no one dared to speak, their minds all consumed by the implications of what they had uncovered. The door had opened, and now there was no going back. Meanwhile, in orbit, Commander Area Jensen's hand tightened around the armrest of her chair. The fleet of ancient warships had entered Earth's atmosphere, moving steadily toward the planet. Their designs were unlike anything the Federation had ever encountered. Massive, black, and sleek, carrying the unmistakable signs of empires long extinct. These were not peaceful ships, nor were they here for exploration. Their arrival was a harbinger of doom. "We've got a problem, Commander," Lieutenant Marcos said, his voice strained. "The warships, they're locking on to Earth's position. I'm detecting energy signatures from their vessels. They've begun to charge weapons." Jensen's mind raced as she surveyed the situation. She had expected conflict, but the scale of the threat was beyond what she had prepared for. The lost civilizations had returned not just to reclaim the power buried on Earth, but to stop it from being unleashed. They knew what would happen if the entity inside the planet was allowed to escape. The destruction it could bring would not only erase Earth, it would obliterate everything in its path, potentially unraveling the fabric of the galaxy itself. The stakes were higher than ever. "Red alert. All hands on deck," Jensen barked. "Prepare the defense systems. We need to stop them before they reach Earth's surface." Back on Earth, the team in the Arctic was struggling to contain the growing chaos within the chamber. The pulsating energy had reached an uncontrollable intensity. The ground was shaking now, violently enough to send chunks of ice and rock tumbling from the ceiling. It was clear that someone, was awakening. Evelyn's mind raced. They had to stop this. Whatever had been sealed away wasn't something that could be contained forever. The energy flowing from the chamber was too much for the station's equipment to handle. "We need to seal it again," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "We have to shut it down. This force, it's not meant to be released." But just as she turned to her team, the air around them grew heavy, thick with dark energy. A deep, rumbling sound reverberated from the core of the structure. It was as if the chamber was aware of their presence, aware of their fear. The energy wave pulsed again, this time with such force that it nearly knocked them off their feet. The walls groaned, the ancient structure now reacting to their every movement. Something was being awakened from its eternal slumber, something more terrifying than they had ever imagined. Suddenly, the ground cracked beneath them. The chamber began to split open, revealing what lay hidden deep inside. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat as the first shape emerged from the blackened void. The silhouette of an enormous towering figure, its form humanoid but vastly larger than any human being. It was an ancient guardian, a relic from a time long forgotten, and it was coming to life before their very eyes. Its body was made of swirling shadows and energy, impossible to comprehend with human senses. Yet it was undeniable that this being had been lying dormant for millennia, waiting for the right moment to be set free. "What is that?" Dr. Singh gasped, stepping back in horror. The figure seemed to ignore them, its focus entirely on the energy radiating from the heart of the chamber. As it moved forward, the chamber's walls began to glow brighter, and the ground beneath them continued to crack open. Evelyn took a step back, her mind struggling to process what she was witnessing. The warnings were clear now. Earth wasn't just hiding a weapon. It was safeguarding something far more dangerous, an entity capable of consuming entire galaxies. The warships now entering Earth's atmosphere were not here to claim the power. They were here to prevent it from being unleashed. Back on the orbital station, Commander Jensen watched in horror as the alien warships descended upon Earth. They had only one mission: to prevent the entity inside the planet from waking. As the warships neared Earth's surface, The Federation's defense systems activated, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. But it was clear that Earth was no match for the power these ancient civilizations wielded. They had been preparing for this moment for centuries. Jensen knew that the fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The final warning had been issued. Earth was now the key to a cataclysmic event, and the ancient warships had arrived to make sure that the sealed power within the planet would never be unleashed. In the Arctic, Evelyn knew that they were running out of time. The Guardian was no longer a mere presence. It was coming for them. They had to find a way to stop it before the universe was plunged into darkness. The stakes had never been higher. If they failed, Earth would be the spark that ignited the end of all things. The frozen walls of the chamber groaned as the Guardian took another step forward, its immense form casting long, terrifying shadows across the room. The air was thick with dark energy, and every instinct Evelyn had screamed that they were in grave danger. The Guardian's presence was like a weight pressing down on the entire research station, a force that felt ancient, malevolent, and far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Its body pulsed with energy, the same dark power that had been emanating from the heart of the chamber. As it moved, the very fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist around it. Evelyn barely had time to think. She grabbed Dr. Singh's arm and pulled him back as the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. The cracks in the chamber's floor deepened, sending shards of ice and rock flying. "Get back," she shouted to the rest of the team. "We can't contain it. We need to shut down the power source. Now." But the Guardian paid no heed to their warnings. Its focus remained fixed on the energy at the center of the room, and its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed with an eerie light, as if it were sensing something far beyond human understanding. The ground beneath Evelyn's feet continued to shake, and the team scrambled to find cover as the chamber's structure seemed to crumble around them. "We can't stop it," Dr. Singh said, his voice hollow with dread. "Whatever this thing is, it's not something we can fight. We need to get out of here before it's too late." But Evelyn didn't move. She was frozen in place, her mind working in overdrive. The ancient civilizations had sealed away this power for a reason, and they had been successful for millennia. But now, Earth had unknowingly triggered its release, and the galaxy was on the brink of destruction. Evelyn's heart pounded as she realized the full magnitude of the situation. The ancient Guardians were here not just to stop the energy from being released. They were here to prevent the entity from waking. Whatever it was capable of wiping out entire galaxies, and Earth was its final safeguard. As the Guardian took another step, the room's temperature plummeted. The chill was so intense that Evelyn could see her breath fog in the air. The walls seemed to pulse with the energy flowing from the center of the chamber, and the ground was now shaking uncontrollably. It was as if the whole planet was reacting to the entity stirring beneath its surface. The dark power was alive, and it was waking up faster than anyone could have imagined. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the chamber, reverberating off the walls. The Guardian raised its massive arms, and the very earth seemed to tremble in response. It was like a battle cry, one that had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The energy within the chamber surged, glowing brighter and brighter until it consumed everything in its path. Evelyn's team huddled together, their faces pale with fear as they realized that there was no escaping the force they had uncovered. Evelyn's mind raced. She had to do something. There had to be a way to stop this, to contain the power before it spread. The transmission they had received from the orbital station still echoed in her mind. "Earth holds a secret. Protect it, or the universe will pay the price." The final warning had been clear. Earth was more than just a planet. It was the key to something far darker, something that could unravel the very fabric of the galaxy. And now, as the ancient warships descended toward Earth, Evelyn understood the gravity of the situation. They weren't here to claim the power. They were here to prevent it from being unleashed. But as the Guardian raised its hands to the sky, the chamber began to collapse. The energy in the room was too much for the walls to contain. Evelyn barely had time to react before the entire structure began to disintegrate. "We have to get out," Dr. Singh shouted, but Evelyn was already moving. She turned to the team, her eyes filled with determination. "Follow me. We need to get to the surface. Now." The team sprinted toward the exit, the ground crumbling beneath them as the energy from the Guardian surged. But as they reached the surface, the scene outside was even worse. The Arctic landscape had been transformed into a war zone. The sky was filled with the massive warships, their dark forms blotting out the sun as they positioned themselves above Earth. The once peaceful world had become the epicenter of an ancient conflict, a battle for survival that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Evelyn's heart raced as she looked up at the ships. Their weapons were charging, and she knew that they had no choice but to fight back. Earth's defenses were no match for the power these ancient fleets wielded, but they had to try. There was no other option. If the Guardians succeeded in their mission, if the dark force beneath the ice was unleashed, it would mean the end of everything. The universe would fall into chaos, its very foundations shattered by the power buried within Earth. The team gathered around Evelyn, fear and determination in their eyes. "What do we do now?" Dr. Singh asked, his voice trembling. "We fight," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We stop them from opening that power. We stop them from unleashing whatever is buried beneath this planet." But as she spoke, the ground beneath them shook once more. The energy from the chamber was reaching its peak, and the ancient guardians were moving. The warships above Earth began to fire, their weapons sending massive blasts into the atmosphere. The world trembled, as if the planet itself were screaming in agony. In the distance, a blinding light erupted from the Arctic, and Evelyn knew that the battle had begun. The fate of the universe now rested in their hands. If they failed, Earth's dark secret would be unleashed, and there would be no stopping the destruction that would follow. As the warships fired their weapons and the Guardian raised its hand to summon the ancient power, Evelyn's resolve hardened. The fight for survival was no longer a choice. It was a necessity. Earth's fate was at the heart of the galaxy's future, and there was no turning back. The Arctic landscape was now a battlefield, the once pristine snow-covered ground torn apart by the shockwaves of explosions and the relentless assault from the ancient warships above. The dark energy pulsing from the chamber had escalated beyond containment, and Earth was no longer a passive participant. It had become the very heart of a cosmic war, the key to a greater threat that had been sealed away for millennia. Evelyn and her team, breathless and battered, stood at the edge of the facility, watching as the sky above them shimmered with the violent energy of the descending warships. Evelyn's mind raced as the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a fight to prevent the release of a powerful weapon. No, what was buried beneath Earth was far worse than anything they had imagined. The ancient civilizations knew this, and they had tried to seal it away for good. But somehow, Earth had been chosen to protect this force. The warning that had echoed across the galaxy was clear. Do not touch a human child. If you do, the universe will pay the price. The galaxy had failed to heed the warning. Now, as the Guardian raised its arms to summon the power locked deep within the planet, Earth's fate was on the line. As the team regrouped near a series of makeshift defenses set up around the research facility, the sky seemed to crack open. The warships, massive and imposing, fired once more, their weapons unleashing waves of destructive energy that shook the Earth itself. Evelyn shielded her eyes against the brightness of the blasts, her heart pounding in her chest. The warships were too powerful, their weapons too advanced, and Earth's fragile defenses, were no match for them. "Commander, we're losing the upper hand." Lieutenant Marcos's voice crackled through the communication channel, strained with urgency. "The warships are activating their shields. We can't get a shot in." In the distance, the massive Guardian raised its hands higher, the swirling dark energy intensifying. The ground beneath them began to tremble again, and the air seemed to grow heavier. The very atmosphere itself seemed to be reacting to the entity's awakening, the oppressive weight of its power pressing down on the planet. Evelyn could feel it in her bones. Whatever had been sealed away under the ice wasn't just a weapon. It was a force of nature, something that could unmake the universe itself. As the warships above Earth continued their assault, Evelyn turned to her team. They had no time left. The situation was dire, and there was no escaping the truth. If they didn't act fast, Earth would be lost, and the galaxy would follow soon after. The Guardian, as terrifying as it was, wasn't the real threat. The dark energy that it was guarding had been the cause of the fall of every civilization that had encountered it. The ancient empires had tried to harness it, but they failed. They sealed it away because they knew that if it were ever unleashed again, the consequences would be beyond anything the universe could endure. "We need to stop the Guardian," Evelyn said, her voice cold and determined. "We have to prevent it from opening the chamber to the full extent of the power inside." Dr. Singh, his face pale, nodded slowly. "How do you propose we do that? We don't even know what that thing is or what it's capable of." "I don't care," Evelyn snapped, her voice fierce. "We don't have time to think. If we don't do something right now, everything will be destroyed. We have one shot at this." The team scrambled to set up what little equipment they had left. They had no weapons powerful enough to stop the Guardian, and no way to fight off the warships above. But they did have one advantage. Inside the chamber, where the dark powers surged, there was a way to disrupt the flow of energy. The same energy that the Guardian was trying to access could also be used against it. Evelyn had no choice but to rely on her instincts. "Gather everything we have," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "We'll use the equipment to create a focused pulse. It might not destroy the Guardian, but it will disrupt the energy field enough to stop it from accessing the power. It's a long shot, but it's our only option." The team worked quickly, assembling everything they could from the lab's remnants. They didn't have much, but they had no time to waste. The ground continued to quake as the Guardian moved, and the warships above Earth were now closing in, their weapons charging for a final assault. The countdown had begun, and Evelyn knew that there was no turning back. In the distance, the Guardian began to chant, its voice a low guttural hum that reverberated through the air. The energy was surging now, spiraling upward as the Guardian attempted to unlock the full power hidden within the Earth. The chamber below seemed to glow with an unnatural light, and Evelyn could feel the heat of it from where she stood. They were running out of time. "Are you ready?" Evelyn asked, turning to her team. The tension in the air was palpable. Every second counted. Every moment brought them closer to the edge of annihilation. The team nodded grimly. They had no choice but to follow her lead. With the press of a button, Evelyn activated the makeshift device. A concentrated pulse of energy surged through the Arctic air, crackling as it made its way toward the Guardian. For a moment, everything went silent. The pulse of energy collided with the dark power surrounding the Guardian, and the entire chamber seemed to shudder with the force of the impact. The Guardian let out an ear-piercing scream, its massive form convulsing as the energy field began to destabilize. But the warships above Earth didn't let up. They fired their final barrage, their weapons sending enormous blasts of energy toward the surface. The sky erupted in flashes of light, and Evelyn felt the ground beneath her feet begin to crack open. The pulse had disrupted the Guardian's control, but it wasn't enough to stop the cataclysm that was about to unfold. The dark energy began to lash out violently, spreading across the surface of the planet. The Guardian's roar echoed in the air, and the Earth itself trembled as if it were being torn apart. But Evelyn, looking up at the warships descending from the heavens, knew one thing: this battle wasn't over. The final warning had been issued, and Earth was still the last hope. But for how long? As the universe held its breath, the question remained: could Earth survive this ultimate test, or would the galaxy fall into darkness forever? The final clash had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again.